Hey, what's going on, you guys? It's your girl, Dana Patrice, aka the Black Fairy, and I'm here with part 2 of Christian conservative Candace Owens against 20 feminist women. I went live Sunday unannounced when I came across this video and decided to do a commentary on it. And today we are continuing that commentary. I'm just going to play the intro and we can get right into it. One second, y'all. I don't know what's going on here. Looks like StreamYard made some changes that I don't understand. Why aren't you playing my intro, StreamYard? I guess they changed it. I'm going to have to take a look into that. That's pisses me off, quite frankly. I can't play my intro. Are we sure? I'm just double checking. Give me a moment, you guys. Wow. They really took it away. I don't know. I'm gonna have to check into YouTube and to see what else is going on, because I don't like that. I don't like it at all. But I'm gonna move forward because I don't want to do too much on it. So let's just get into it. I'm gonna add to the stage. This is kind of where we left off. It didn't start off where we were, which it usually does, but not sure what happened. And we're gonna get into it. So let's just jump right in. So where we left off was this lady. She did a really good job with Candace. And if you watch the first one, you would have seen this. So this is the end.
They become even more alone. All right. Jasmine, nice to meet you. Okay, so you say that women are more fulfilled at home with kids than going out into the workforce or getting educated, but that just really doesn't bear out when you look at the stats, when you look at how working mothers are way less likely to be in poverty. Maternal education is the #1 predictor of childhood outcomes, better scores, getting higher incomes in the future, fewer behavioral problems, better mental health. So it's weird to me and college-educated women are least likely to get divorced, and they're the only women, the top 10% of women are the only women whose marriage rates are going up. So they're getting married, they're staying married, and their kids are doing better. When you look at stay-at-home mothers, you see that they're more likely to report being depressed. They're more likely to report having anxiety and anger and all these types of things. So how can you say that? Seems like a woman, if you want to get married and have kids, you should go to college and have a career.
So it sounds to me like we are looking at totally different statistics, because everything that you said, I've actually read the exact opposite.
I'm glad we're on a fact check show with you.
Right, exactly.
Oh, it's so exciting.
That's going to be amazing. Okay, because I know, like I said, I think what we're talking about is that there was this widespread report on female happiness, and I know that it was formally debunked, and it was
That's not what I'm talking about. Pew Research, right. University of California. In fact, working mothers today spend more time with their children than women did in the 1960s that were at home.
Okay, well, women that are at home are obviously spending more time with their children than the people who are at work.
And their children are not faring off any better, and they're faring off worse.
I hate when she says, I could tell you because I'm around mothers. Like, it's weird because I consider Candace Owens to be quite educated, right? But she's making these statements like, well, I know of, and I can see the mothers around me, as if that her life is a reflection of what motherhood is for everybody. She made a lot of these kind of statements in the last video that we did in the part 1. And I think that was one of the things that annoyed me the most about her. I'm like, this is a debate. She's giving you facts and you're giving her feelings. But let's continue. Oh, shout out to the 3 people here.
Worse.
How are you measuring their children faring off worse?
How likely they are to higher incomes, better scores, fewer health problems, fewer behavioral issues, and better mental.
So the just to get back to the claim that I'm making here is that it is obvious that women who have children are going to be more fulfilled.
How is it obvious? Because you said
No, it's not obvious because I said so. It's because when you look at all the statistics in terms of women who are choosing not to have families, they are, as the person who just sat here before you mentioned, they are suffering from more depression. They're suffering from more anxiety.
And that's not true.
Okay, it is true. It is actually true that women who are choosing their careers over starting families are finding themselves leaning more onto medicines like Xanax, anxiety-inducing medicines, and depression because they suspended that time.
Sorry, I just wanted to get the data there. I wanted to read it. Ooh, almost there. Hold on, maybe I just went a little too far.
And they are suffering from more depression. They're suffering from more anxiety. And
that's not true.
Okay, it is true. It is actually true.
So the SAN fact check says recent data on this topic is scarce, but CDC data shows that from 2015 to 2018, women were more likely than twice as likely to take antidepressants than men, and antidepressants use was more common amongst those with college degrees. I would say that more women are actually taking charge of their mental health. I mean, men are unaliving themselves at high rates. And maybe if they did, get on some antidepressants, they wouldn't be doing that. Maybe if they were open to therapy and they were encouraged to go to therapy, more than just, the whole toughen it up type vibe that men seem to get and go by, they would be on more antidepressants because we're living in a time where we're under extreme stress. I don't think it has anything to do with family or birthing children. Hi, Amira Rose. You said Candace is condescending as hell to younger women. It gives me the ick. She is condescending. She is condescending, and she has this know-it-allism that I really just can't stand. I mean, be open to the new information. I feel like she only researches points that uphold her own views. I don't think she really looks at anything else. And just to see the contradictions, but let's see. I don't really think that this proves her point the way that she thinks it does. She's leaving out a lot.
True that women who are choosing their careers over starting families are finding themselves leaning more onto medicines like Xanax, anxiety-inducing medicines, and depression because they suspended that time frame where women really should be looking to find a partner and to start a family because they were instead pursuing their careers.
And why are they better off?
It is a dishonest. It's totally a dishonest narrative that men and women want the same things out of life. We don't. We absolutely do not want the same things out of life. In fact, we don't even measure success.
Did we watch this? I should have watched last.
But tell me how the women who are working and getting educated, why are they?
Sorry, I'm trying to I think I left off at the right place. I'm not going to do that. I really do think I left that at the right place. Sorry, y'all. I'm I don't know why it sounds familiar, but it could just be me.
Faring off better in all of these.
I am telling you that I do not believe they are faring off better in all of these metrics.
Because of what?
I am telling you that we are looking at totally opposite statistics. So you're sitting here telling me that the statistics show that women who are working are producing better children. And I'm saying that women that grow up in a two-family home where the mother stays at home are faring off better than the children who are being raised in an environment
where the women are working,
where both of the parents are
working
away from the home. I do get to work from home.
No. But I've watched your show. You talk about all the nannies you hire, and it's so hard to find a good nanny.
I never talked about all of the nannies I hire.
Yeah, you have.
I spoke about how difficult it was to find a babysitter who knew how to cook a meal, and that's because
you don't need a babysitter. You could retire right now.
To let people respond to you when they're speaking.
You don't want to.
Respond to you.
No, you don't want to. You want to be working, which is great.
You're telling me what I want now, and then accusing me of telling you.
Wait, you don't want to work?
Can you just let me finish? Because you've said so many words that what you're trying to do here, your argument style, is I'm going to say so much and not let her get a word in, and then walk away and feel like I've won. We're not having a conversation because you've not letting me respond to one of your points. Okay. What I am saying to you, first to answer what you.
She is kind of over talking her and getting in her face. I know a lot of these women, a lot of feminist women have a problem with Candace Owens. Obviously, we see why. She's a conservative Christian woman, but she constantly contradicts herself within this conversation, this aspect. I just don't understand how she basks in all the things that feminism has brought her and given her the capability to do, while being so condescending about it and upping her nose at women who consider themselves feminists. It's really weird to me.
Or what you just said, which was a lie. What I spoke to you about on the weekends is that it's been increasingly difficult to find a 25-year-old who even knows how to make boxed macaroni and cheese, right? And that's crazy. That is in large part due to feminism. Women don't even focus. Women don't even focus. Like there's this idea that women shouldn't be cooking. Like there's something fundamentally wrong with women even learning how to cook.
Are you
know what I
spending
mean?
as much time with your children as you possibly can? Because that's the.
I don't think the problem is that women shouldn't be cooking. I think the problem is that women don't want to be unpaid chef to a whole household anymore. I think women believe that men, because cooking should be a life skill. Personally, my mom taught my brother to cook and clean right along with us. I have an older sister and an older brother, and my mom made sure that my brother did everything. In fact, that was her point. She literally said, you're going to learn to do these things because you're not going to look for a woman to do these things for you. You're a grown adult. A grown adult should be able to cook and clean for themselves. You know, and even my mother, being the Christian that she is, like thorough Christian, deeply rooted Christian, she still didn't think that it was fair or anything like that for a child to not have to do any work and to leave all the work to the girls. Like he had to do everything we did. So this whole idea that she has that's feminism is causing women not to cook is absolutely ridiculous. I think more people are not cooking. It's because food is so accessible and you have Uber Eats and all these things. People don't want to cook. It's not something that anybody would really want to do if they didn't have to. I know some people do enjoy cooking, but the majority of people I know don't want to cook every day. They don't want to do that every single day for every single meal. And I just think a lot of, like, I don't know. That's just my point of view. Let us continue.
That's the way to get the most fulfillment.
No, and that's what I'm trying to say. I am speaking to you as
stop.
Okay, could you please let somebody get in?
I did.
I
let you finish.
You're not. You
I
actually
did.
have not let anybody finish. And like I said,
have.
it's no one benefits when you're just speaking over me and not allowing me to respond. All you're proving is that you have an attitude and you believe in feminism, but you're not. See, that's what I'm saying. You just have an attitude, and it's not cute. It's performative.
I'm actually my point. I will be quiet if you address my point.
Does anybody actually feel here that I am being allowed to address any of her points when she does keep running over me? Like I'm literally trying to answer your first point of you saying that I don't stay at home.
Yeah,
fair point.
Really weird.
Fair point. Obviously, I get that you're all anti-Candace and pro-feminist, but also it's not productive if you're not actually.
Okay, address the point. You spend more time saying that I'm not addressing that you don't have a chance to talk. I mean, the whole time you could have addressed the point. Okay. You could have talked. I go for it.
Just want you to know that you're not coming across as somebody who wants to actually have a conversation. So to get back to the claim, because I don't even know where you're at. You're now talking. You're saying that I said stuff in my podcast.
I'll go wherever you want to go.
I never said.
I'll go wherever.
So do you want to start with me working at home? Because I work at home. You just said something about me working.
You travel all around the world.
Okay,
you do speeches, and I love that. I love how ambitious you are. That's a really great trait. And if you were truly said that, you would be more fulfilled. Now, one thing you do find is women, they don't want to stay at home when you pull them. They just want flexible working hours and flexible working conditions like you have. And I think we should all advocate for that. It's not one or the other. But when you sit here and you go, you'll be more fulfilled doing this and spend all your time doing that, we would love for you to leave the public eye and go focus on what makes you fulfilled.
Okay.
Hey, before we go any further, we want to take a moment to say,
warn y'all that we did see a little bit of this, but whatever, we're back.
Thanks so much to Straight Arrow News for powering the fact checks in this video. Straight Arrow News is on a mission to raise the bar on journalism in a time of media bias and mistrust. Straight Arrow News helps you quickly find trusted information reporting on a story so you can trust. Go to SA again to Straight Arrow News for
I'm just gonna pass by this.
Nice to meet you.
Episode. Now let's get into it.
My next claim is that we live under a matriarchy, not a patriarchy.
Before we even get into this, I thought this was ridiculous. This is one of the clips that I saw. I believe Princella's going to take this one. And we'll get into that. But what? We live in a matriarchy? Candace, where are you in the world? What are you talking about? Let's get into it.
Hi, hello.
Nice to meet you.
It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Princella, the Queen Maker.
I love that.
So you say we live in a matriarchy.
Right.
Can you give me the definition of patriarchy?
Yes. Well, the patriarchy is the idea that the system, our system in America, is being run by men, and that women are having to exist under a system that immediately disadvantages them because men are behind it. And I disagree with that pointedly. I think actually we're living in a society where people are being very much influenced socially and politically by women.
Okay, so the denotative definition of patriarchy is father rule, and where positions of government are held majorly by men, where women are largely excluded. So 125 House of Representatives are female, and that's only about 25%.
Right.
And only about 28% make up Senate, and 3.3% of Congress up until this date have ever been women. So by denotative definition, we literally live in a patriarchy.
Yes. So I disagree with that. So I think what this gets to, which is actually an important part of the conversation, is that people always think that where there is disparity, there's somehow inequality. And I actually reject that entirely. I think it's just a difference in what we're interested in. I think we're biologically wired, we're interested in different careers. And just because if we looked in the fashion industry and said, oh, well, it's being dominated by women, it wouldn't mean that, okay, well, that means that the fashion.
There is no industry that isn't run by men. The fashion industry, if you look at the heads, the CEOs, all men. Hair, men. Every literal industry is run by men. Even the way that they say, oh, women should be in the kitchen. The chefs that that world-renowned chefs, dominated by men. I don't know where she's getting this information from. She's so off in this aspect. It's changing. I don't pay attention to Candace Owens at all. I really don't. I've watched a few things here or there. I think I've said it even in the last video. There's things that I agree with her on, but there's way more that I disagree with her with. And I've never seen her in a debate of this forum, but what the hell is she talking about? Exactly. The fashion industry is not equal to society at all. Like, I don't know what she's talking about. And this is where I'm like, I see why people don't like her. Because she really just pushes narratives that sound good, but obviously aren't well researched. I really can't think of any industry where a man is not heading at the head of it. I really can't. What is it's okay, Candace? Let's continue.
Fashion industry is a matriarchy and men have no sense. It just means have no ability to communicate how they feel in the fashion industry. I literally think that those numbers show that we're just biologically different. So I actually think politically, women have shown that they have a lot more power than men have. And I'm talking about just in terms of political movements. The most recent I can think of is the Me Too movement, right?
Oh my God.
If a bunch of women get together and complain about a man and refer to the patriarchy and scream, generally speaking, let me know if you agree, the media will celebrate that. If a
Wait. I'm going to pull that back. Sorry. I want to hear, what did you say, Candace?
That they have a lot more power than men have. And I'm talking about just in terms of
women have a lot more power than men have.
Political movements. The most recent I can think of is the Me Too movement, right? If a bunch of women get together and complain about a man and refer to the patriarchy and scream.
They complain about a man doing what, Candace? They're just complaining about men. They just go there and be like, oh my God, there's too many people with penises in the room. Oh, me too. They're complaining about what? They're not complaining about a man. They're complaining about their treatment, usually because they're being sexually harassed in the workplace. What is Candace talking about? She's being obtuse and skirting the topic. Absolutely. Candace, just say you hate women and be done with it. Golly. This is what it's giving. It really is giving that. And I'm just like, my jaw's on the floor right now because she is not making any sense. There's no way she could have said, I researched this and this is what I found. Absolutely not, Candace. Come on.
Scream. Generally speaking, let me know if you agree, the media will celebrate that. If a bunch of men got together and were shrieking and speaking about women, generally speaking, the media would call them all white supremacists and say that we had a misogyny problem and that things were really wrong in society. Women are allowed to.
That's probably because if men are complaining about women, they're complaining about dumb shit. Like, that doesn't even matter. Like, I can't get a woman to suck my peen. I can't get a woman to date me. Women aren't actively like, I'm not saying like all women are perfect, because I don't. I've said that before. I'm not for all women. There's a lot of pick-mishas that could just stay over there, right? So it's not even like I'm all for women. I'm not for every single woman. But what she's doing, minimizing the Me Too movement, acting as though men have these kind of same complaints about women when men are pretty much biggest predators as women, is insane to me. I've never heard a man complain about a woman in the case of like the way, like in comparison to the Me Too movement. You know, I've never heard of like a man being in an office full of women who like sexually harassed him, for example. I'm not saying that women don't sexually harass men. They do. But I'm saying that in the same type of form, in the same type of way, in the same type of high numbers. I do also know that men are kind of like told to kind of shut up in those situations. You know what I mean? Where it would happen. But again, it doesn't happen as much. And I don't think it's solely around the fact that it's like, oh, you know, women are defending each other. I feel like it's because usually the power dynamics is usually a man is running things. Usually a man is, you know, in charge. 7,000 men got together and were passing around abuse content and nobody did anything. What did Candace say about that? Right? Right? Even, are you talking about that, the ones that were found in that, what was it, the Telegram group or something like that? And they were sharing content and sharing how to like grape each other and sharing inappropriate photos of their children and wives and things like that. I definitely heard about that. And you're absolutely right. Like when we see men getting together to complain about women, it's usually sexual complaints. Like they're not getting enough, like the incel movement. Like they can't find a wife. They can't find a woman who will put up with them. You know, women have too high standards. So I don't know, Candace. This is sad.
To be more vocal in general about problems than men are.
Well, let me speak to that. When we're talking about government and media, these are two different things. So under the denotative definition of a patriarchy, by the percentages that are occupied in the government, which is majority male, defines us as a patriarchy. Now, when it comes to for capitalism, for marketing purposes and control, for capital and revenue, that is a totally different conversation. But who's making the laws? I don't think that women are the ones voting to have their reproductive rights taken away, where you have rape, incest, and all of these things excluded to force women to be able to have. I don't think women in government would largely vote against their own interests because it's majority male, patriarchy.
Okay, I think love that point. Are women allowed to vote?
Oh, of course they are.
Who's voting that patriarchy and then out of curiosity?
No, I totally agree. And you want to know why? Because there are so many women who think like you. You submit to the idea of men ruling everything. And your ideology is spread across a lot of women who also falsely believe to vote against their own interests just to complain about it in the end. You know, earlier you said that, you know, women would be much more happier working at home. But don't you agree that it's human nature to want things that you don't have? So during the 1950s, which is something that you constantly bring up, you know, it wasn't until 1994 that it was illegal to beat your wife. And so what we're dealing with.
So San fact check, she's referring to the 1994 Violence Against Women Act, which provides protections at the federal level for victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, and other crimes.
Is people wanting something, and then when they get it, they're not happy with it, and then they have to revoke that idea for something else. And so what you're saying is that women vote for these things because they have the same mentality as you.
Okay, so you're acknowledging that women have the freedom to vote.
Yes.
And you're saying that women are still existing mentally, even with the freedom to vote.
Correct.
They are voting men in because we are still victims of...
No, I don't believe in victimhood. I believe in lack of education and lack of knowledge, because one of the things that you also say...
Do you think that it could just be that more men are running for positions of office?
No, not necessarily. Because remember, the United States, the average reading comprehension of people in the United States is 6th grade. So we're not dealing with educated people. Lack of education is the cause for what we see in the world. And if we educate the women better, because a nation can rise no higher than its woman, and if she reading and comprehending at a 6th grade level and popping out a lot of kids, you know, because the brokest people in the world pop out the most kids. So if we have those people voting, of course they're going to vote against their interests because they vote.
Oh, what happened? What you doing?
Voting for some utopian society that will never exist.
Okay, so that's why you think Kamala lost.
This ain't even about Kamala.
Well, you're talking about women. No, but we had an opportunity.
Yeah, go ahead.
We had a male running and we had a female running. And we actually showed that Trump increased the amount of women who voted for him, right? So I'm asking.
President Trump increased the share of women who voted for him from 41% in 2016 to 45% in 2024. I don't feel equipped to speak on that because I'm not an American. I am Canadian. I don't know too much about it. But what she's doing here, deflecting and acting as though, like what Princella said was right. The education is lower, and a lot of them are heavily indoctrinating Christianity, programmed to believe that men should lead. So although the laws have changed, a lot of Christian women will say that they don't see themselves as a place in these positions because of the indoctrination that they go through. Let me see what y'all are saying. When conservatives says women have high standards, that is often coded as women are no longer putting up with bullshit. True. The gaslighting is epic. Women need to up the ante and activate Black Widow mode all day, every day. We need less ding-dongs on Earth by a large percentage. I absolutely agree with you.
Asking you, do you believe that the reason that happened was because women became less educated during that time?
They've always been less educated. Did you know that UNESCO says that that 2/3 of the 7.7 million illiterate adults is women? Illiterate. And we have 6th grade educated people voting. And guess who? Guess the dominant population is white women. And so guess what? Now you have to add a race element into that, which you already know exists. Because we, as Black folks, we ain't the dominant people voting people in. Okay, so now when we have to go into white supremacy and feminism, now you have to look at the mind of the people who actually have economic success and what they're voting for, because classism actually matters as well. So I'm sorry, but a lot of people vote based on their feelings and not based on policy.
Pause, guys.
Yes.
Sorry, you've been voted out by the majority. Please return to your seat.
Thank you for the respectful conversation.
I think that conversation went well. I think Princella pretty much put her to bed, because the things that she was spewing just aren't factual. Like Candace, like I was expecting so much more from her, and it's just regurgitated bullshit, that like misogynistic bullshit. Like it's almost like, what, like, where did you get your stats from? Fresh and Fit, Candace? Like, what are you doing? What are you doing, Candace?
Hi. How are you?
Great to meet you. I'm doing
Very
well.
nice to meet you.
So I view this argument as a matter of fact, right? This is a descriptive claim about the culture, reality we live in, and patriarchy being a system in which men hold the predominance of power in both political, economic, and social methods of organization. So S&P 500 companies, 90% of CEOs are men. Board members, 70% of CEOs are men. 70% of congressional members are men. Now, you may provide some sort of naturalistic argument to why that is, but what you're essentially arguing then is that there's a natural patriarchy, which I think feminists would all disagree with. We think that there's a clear social pressure as to why this is. And part of the evidence for that is since feminism's arise within our public culture, we've now seen an explosion of women entering these fields, but we have a long way to go. But fundamentally, the claim regarding patriarchy or matriarchy, we are so much closer to where we were just a few decades ago or a couple generations ago, where women couldn't hold a credit card, than a system where men can't hold a credit card. We're still much closer to that form of society.
Why would you say that we're closer to that? What do you mean by that? Could you just qualify that?
Because in terms of economic power, so for example, household wealth, women own 55 cents to every dollar a man owns.
Who controls household spending, though?
Talk
about how the money's made in America. How is it being spent?
So it's primarily spent by women, as you've noted, but then the money where the profit's being generated, it's being generated by men.
Would you rather be the people that are spending and deciding on what the money's being spent on, or would you rather be the person that's just working to earn that?
Well, CEOs and board members aren't working; they own the shares, and they're making the profit.
Well, when you own profit is making.
You would much in a capitalist system, by definition, you would much rather be making the profit than spending.
I would much rather be spending your money than having to work for your money. Just so we are totally clear here, I would much rather spend your money than have to go out and earn your money.
Well, you're talking about wage laborers in terms of working, but in
misogynistic, it's driving me insane. Sorry, do you hear who's doing all the spending? Who's doing all the spending? Like, women spend the money. They're also like, even if you say that, right? Even when I think about that, and then I think about Princella's stats about the uneducation of women and things like that, like, and because they don't have access to the education, they don't have better spending habits. A lot of us don't. Even men. We live in this capitalist society, very commercialism, very materialistic. That's what's pushed to us by these heads that he's talking about, right? That gaining the profit. She's gross. This is and the thing is, I've watched certain things and I never got this aspect from it. It's very interesting.
in terms of
no, I'm talking about spending power, right?
Yeah,
well,
sure. Okay.
But that matters.
Wait,
if 85% of 85 cents of every dollar, how that's being spent, is being determined by women, that's power. That we can't say spending power is not power.
Why do you think that is the case? It's because women are often relegated to the role of doing grocery shopping, et cetera, because for millennia now, or from millennia up until now, women were unable to enter the workforce and have economic political freedom.
Let's get into the reasons, because you brought up something, that men are the people that are at the top of these companies, these Fortune 500 companies.
Right. And political power.
You're absolutely right. Why is that?
It's primarily because the women haven't broken the ceiling quite yet in terms of meeting men in terms of parity with these sort of powers. But what we've seen with the explosion of feminism is that women have actually begun to enter these companies, have risen into both political and economic positions of power. But that continues to grow year by year, which shows that these social pressures are actually breaking apart as soon as feminism comes into play.
So what I would say is what that shows you is that women and men have different interests. And I think this gets into what I was saying. That
bullshit, Candace. It's not about different interests. Women aren't given the opportunity to be interested in these fields. Up until recently, women have not been given the opportunity to enter these fields, to have access to even be educated in these fields, to even know whether or not they want to be in these fields. She's acting like women don't have an interest in something that we were literally not allowed to be a part of. What the hell? She wants to spend the money but doesn't want equal earning power. Thank you. Fucking ooh, like she's so stupid. Like when it comes to this, she's so dumb. Like,
just because you see a disparity does not mean that it's not just a disparity in what our interests are. That's what's being represented. I don't know why there has been this idea that women should want to aspire to work 80 hours a week in order to be on par with men.
Do you think that interests are innate?
Nobody should have to work 80 hours a week, Candace. Nobody should have to work, not even men should have to work 80 hours a week. It's absolutely ridiculous the way that they are pushing this hustle system and things like that. It's not necessary at the end of the day. Yes, she is being very intellectually dishonest. And it's like, even what she's saying now, like, it doesn't add up to what we know. It really bothers me how she's trying to act like, well, women aren't there because they're not interested. They've never had the opportunity to even have the chance to be interested up until now. Like Candace, if she had went to university back in the day, she would have, I remember, didn't they make women stand outside the classroom and learn like outside the classroom and things like that? Just like even as a woman of color at that, like segregation and all that stuff. Like you were not allowed and we were not told that that's something that we could do. It was like, oh, you belong in the kitchen. Don't do that. Even back in the day when you watched like period pieces, the boys would be educated in all sorts of things like math, reading, philosophy, all these things. The girls went to etiquette classes and learned to sew. They were never introduced to these things to be able to have the voice behind it. And for her to sit there and be like, well, it's just different interests. It's biology. Women just generally aren't interested. And the fact that I know now that, in fact, before patriarchy was ushered in, and we did have more matrilineal societies and matriarchal societies, that women held these positions much greater than men did. Like, how would she explain that? That history shows that, in fact, before, men used brute force and power to overtake and overcome and enslave everybody and oppress everybody, that women were, in fact, in these positions. They were the political forces. They were the spiritual heads. They were everything. They were the best hunters. They were, what do you mean, Candace? I mean, there's a video, is it my Women Superior video, Women Are Superior video, where I posted about how they archaeologists have found that in a lot of matriarchal societies, it wasn't only that the women were better hunters, it was that grandma was teaching everybody how to hunt, including the boys. And the reason why the women were so much better at it is because women, much like the lioness, they worked together, where men either went by themselves or maybe with one more, kind of like male lions. You know, they kind of roll in pairs if they're not by themselves, not usually more than that. But women, we get together like our lionesses do, and we work together to hunt. And that's why we were more successful at it and we did such better jobs at it. So this whole idea that she has is completely like misogynistic rhetoric. It's not actually true. Grifter, hustle culture is also very harmful and built on a lie. Absolutely. Nobody dreams of endless work hours. Absolutely. The resources of the whole planet is being hoarded by 3,000 billionaires, 30% of which are in the US alone. Exactly. And I'm just like, Candace, I know you, like, if she did the slightest amount of research for the opposition, she would find that she's way off. But we're going to continue because I know what it is, y'all. It's her Christian ideals. This is her Bible-thumping indoctrination coming up to the forefront. It's literally melting her brain.
Nate, or do you think
I
that
think the interests are innate?
So why is it then that, for example, in the 1980s, only a quarter of college graduates were women, where now majority of college graduates are women? That shows that because of the way that social pressures have actually changed, women's interests are actually now changing too. A majority, I think, or at least half of law school graduates are now women. It used to be the case in, for example, a few hundred years ago, that a lot of primary philosophers like Immanuel Kant, Hegel, didn't even believe women could be reasonable. Now here you are today doing a debate with me where we're using logic and reason to get to these flows, and nobody here would dismiss the claim that you can't be rational or logical or be, for example, a great lawyer because you're a woman.
Right. So I totally agree with you that women, but I think they have actually entered into the workforce. I mean, entered into college under this external pressure of feeling that if you don't go to college, you're going to be a failure.
So you admit
and
that
knowing
pressures
that
are a part of the way interests work.
Yes, but we're disagreeing on where the pressure is coming from. Like, I think that now the pressure is that if a woman doesn't enter the force, there's no longer this idea that, okay, we're going to come together as a family, whereas there was this reality that there was this understanding that you would have a partner. People were getting married when they were 18, 19 years old. Right. Our grandparents, now it's because of feminism.
Have you talked to grandparents? I think I said this in the last video, and I really wish I could have found the clip. Even though right now it seems like clips aren't working, I couldn't even play my intro video. But there was this woman, and she was like Indian, but like Guyanese or something like that. And she was with her aunt and her mother, and she asked them questions about marriage. And they said that if they had the choices now, they would never get married. They would have never had children. And they said, looking at it, I love you, you're my child, but if I didn't have to do this, or if it wasn't about the times, I would have never done this. So many women from those days, if you talk to them, they're not like, oh, it was so great. Women should not have. Please, Candace, you're living in a Leave It to Beaver world. Like, what are you talking about? You don't talk to everyday people. You just don't. Men learned cooperation from women, then they do everything to keep women separated and miseducated. Absolutely. Because if they let us in, we would do it better. I said it on Sunday as well. I do believe that we should have equal opportunity, but I honestly believe that if we did have equal opportunity, women would come out on top. We're simply just better at multitasking. The way that our brain functions shows that we are better leaders. This is science that's showing this, right? This is what they've observed in science when they observe our brains and they can make the comparisons. Women are just naturally better for leadership. So, she's full of shit. And these are male scientists that are admitting this, by the way.
And I'm saying this is the downside of feminism. Women no longer have that sense. They think that they have to be pressured to go take out a loan to go to college, and then you have the pressure to get.
Well, they have the same pressures as men because women no longer rely on it for an income.
Pause. You've been voted out by the majority. Please.
Did like our conversation. Might have to come back to you.
I think he did a really great job. He was very solid. His points were great. Actually really like to see when men are this knowledgeable and not so fucking misogynistic. It's really nice to see. I wish we could see it more, being in this space, I've actually seen it quite a bit, which has been enlightening. And I don't know. I know some women be like, we don't trust them. And yeah, of course we don't trust them, but it's still nice to see.
Candace Owens. I'm Paris.
Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. So can I explain to you why I believe we live in a patriarchy and why I believe we live in a society that's preferential to men? So I'm going to use the example of male violence. There's a lot of places I can look, but we're going to talk about that. 81% of women have been sexually assaulted. 1 in 6 have been raped. 1 in 4 women are the victims of domestic violence. 98% of perpetrators of rape and sexual assault are men. 95% of perpetrators of domestic violence are men. In regards to human trafficking, 70% of human trafficking victims are women. So we're seeing a very clear issue of men being violent towards women. And then when we look at the way that our government handles that, 1 out of 3 rapes go reported. And then out of the ones that go reported, 7% end in jail time. So if we're looking at that, and we're looking at the fact that our government doesn't really get that worried about male violence.
Well, so what I would say is going back to biological differences, men are naturally inclined more towards aggression than women are. So I am not shocked by you telling me. It's, even if you looked at, like I said, male on male crime, you would see that there are more instances of men killing other men than there are instances of women killing other women. And that, I think, actually speaks to our biological differences, which is actually at the root of everything that I believe about feminism being a lie, is because they're trying to program people to believe that men and women are the same. Now, I don't think that pointing to the fact that men are more aggressive than women, which is a point that you and I 1000% agree on, whether or not that manifests in the very wrong way of men harming other men, which I think they do more probably than they are beating women, men on male violence. That manifestation doesn't change the fact that men and women are just biologically hardwired different. I think it's actually proof of that. I don't think it has anything to do with the fact of power dynamics in this country, because to the contrary, if you look at prison rates and talking about how disparities don't mean anything, the majority of overwhelming people that are in prison are male, right? There's a reason for that. So when it manifests in a good way, that male aggression, is the reason why we have men defending us, men that are willing to go to war and die for our nation.
What? Candace? Hold on.
So aggression being an aspect of masculinity has nothing to do with the conversation of whether or not feminism is harming women today.
Yeah, I agree with you that
we agree.
women are biologically different.
Yes, but I don't. What I want you to connect it to is, I guess, power. Because what I'm talking about when I say that we're existing under a matriarchy is that I believe that the social pressures politically and socially that are coming, and even within our music, if we talk about Hollywood, it's very much has become
nothing. Like, just because who was on the top music charts or whatever are women. Okay, how many women have paid maternity leave?
That's not
like how are things panning out in the family courts? Why are abusive men having access to their children? Like, why are women making less than men? Like, what? None of that means anything to me.
So that gap, obviously, I'm sure you've recognized the gender gap has been debunked so many times. It's almost foolish to debunk it again.
Well, you could say, that most women will go into jobs where they're making less, but then it does answer the question of why do we not value women's labor?
That's not valuing women's labor. It's just a reality that if you are going to be a person that aspires to become a brain surgeon, you are going to make more money than a person that aspires to do something that's, like in the household.
Can we go back to the real violence question? Yes. Why does our country not persecute men then who are rapists?
Well, the majority of people who are in prison are men. So I don't know what you mean that we don't prosecute men that are rapists. We even prosecute people.
7% go to jail. Only 7% go to jail.
I don't know what that has to do with the question of whether or not we're living in a matriarchy or a patriarchy.
Because our government is preferential to men.
You're saying that they only like to arrest men when they kill someone, but our government is awarding men for raping women. I don't understand what
they don't care. Rape is effectively legal. You can literally rape a woman and you have a very low likelihood of actually going to jail as a man.
Rape is effectively legal.
It's effectively legal. How many men are actually going to jail for
I
rape?
actually agree with you that in terms of sex crimes, and I don't know how you're peeling out women, because I would even, and again, this is nothing with our argument today, but I would even say that people are not being prosecuted hard enough when we're dealing with crimes against children, period.
Yeah.
Talking about
100%.
sexual crimes not being prosecuted
100%.
in this country is a whole other conversation, and you will not get a disagreement with me, but I think that it's wrong to say that it's somehow attached to being a woman when you know there are so many children that are going through the exact same thing. I mean, the light sentences that are tossed out for pedophiles, it's completely ridiculous.
All right, guys, pause.
But I don't think it has anything to do with the conversation that we're having right now. But I agree with
you. It has everything to do with it, and you're separating it to make your
time. Please return to your seat. I'm going to add 5 more minutes to this claim.
It's so hard for me to listen to women like this. And I know it's important because we do need to know who's around us. And we do need to know who's for us and who's against us. What I appreciate about Candace is that she is one of the more straightforward women when it comes to this. At least I know who she is and I see who she is. Where with Christian liberal women, they kind of hide behind it, even though they do have a lot of these same ideals about a women's place based on their indoctrination, because the indoctrination of Christian women is that they are less than men, that they don't belong in power positions, that they are less than men, yes, but like you are supposed to look to men to lead you. Like you are not smart enough to go about this world on your own, ladies. You need a man beside you. You don't need each other. And I don't understand why she's so like, I think there's proof. I don't know what proof she's talking about. I don't think that I've seen any actual research, tangible research that actually backs a lot of her claims. In fact, even the fact this is a fact check, they didn't really do much fact checking on her. It's not like we had any pop up on the side and be like, yes, she's correct. This is what it says. Like, I don't know. But there was a great comment. It said, grandparents married for survival, absolutely not actual desire. They were destitute otherwise. They had 3 options: marry, nunnery, or sex workery, right? Which is actually really true. That's women's options, right? So she's just disgusting in this line of disgusting me. Exactly. She really is. Like, I was like, wow.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, Adam. Nice to meet you.
Yeah. So your claim is, just to be clear, that we live in a matriarchy, right?
Yes.
So I think even you'd agree that on a global level, that's obviously ridiculous when there are countries where people literally are honor killed for like Instagram posts. But even if we're talking about just the US, right? We don't have paid maternity leave. Abortion is illegal in over a dozen different states. And as someone earlier was mentioning, women are overwhelmingly the victims of sexual violence and domestic abuse. So that doesn't seem like a very well-designed matriarchy where women are victims or, lacking power in so many different realms of society on like a structural level.
I just do not think that women are lacking power on a structural level because they can't, which they can, by the way, abort their children. Is that like one of your components? Is that
there's many states where abortion is illegal? Do you dispute that?
I am going to dispute that having a child is somehow something that restricts women in any capacity. Like you're saying,
what about the ability to decide what you do with your own body?
I don't believe that I don't believe that murder is something that you should be allowed to
Sure,
decide.
and murder.
Oh, this part of the conversation is gonna. Oh, this part of this conversation is gonna. Oh, sorry. Let's continue. Oh my God, I'm mad. Okay.
Murder is illegal.
It's actually what you're doing to somebody else's body.
Sure,
so I'm pro-life. So
Sure.
the argument that, well, women will only be free if they're able to, kill off their own offspring, to me is
that's a really
extremely off-colored.
Well, I guess if you
argument
frame it that way, everyone kind of has to agree with you. But when we're talking about abortion, when 99% take place in the first few weeks, when there's no thalamus, there's no cortex, there's no capacity for consciousness.
The brain begins to show electric activity at week 8. 81% of abortions are performed by week 9.
In the fetus that's developing, saying that that fetus that has no capacity to be conscious, aware, anything else, should have the same rights, same bodily autonomy as a woman, that is an obvious, you're making my point for me.
You're actually making a point that people who are, born with tremendous disabilities should just be killed because of cognitive
That's not
I don't remember saying that. When did I say that?
The best argument, which again, this is sidetracked.
Saying that
let's get back on track.
Kill people with disabilities.
Well, I'm saying that if you're saying, I'm saying that if you're saying that it's cognitive ability and at what stage
ability
you
to
think.
Be conscious, and just so we're clear, disabled people are conscious. They're aware.
Okay. So the best argument that it is a life is the fact that you have to kill it. You have to have a procedure to kill it, right? So you have to intervene on the development. Like you said, you called it a developing life.
Sure.
If you have to go into your body and murder it, then it's murder.
That there's living human cells in a
again. So we can just tack that off because we just have a fundamental disagreement on whether or
then
not
we can
a child
talk
is a
about
life.
paid maternity leave. People have been talking a lot about whether you have to be a mother, you have to work. A lot of women have to pick one or the other because in many cases, if you want to have a child, first of all, there's a big gap in your resume, so getting a job after that might be super difficult. And then secondly, even in the process of having that child, being pregnant, especially in the 3rd trimester, and then raising the child, where the vast majority of the burden typically is on the mother, the workplace and our system of our economy is not tailored to make that easy for them.
I actually totally agree with you. And this gets
paid
into
maternity leave,
this. I don't know, actually. I'm agreeing with you that this pressure that you're describing exists for women. And I'm saying that it exists for women because of the feminists that came before who argued for women to enter the workplace. So what you're saying is the solution didn't work and it actually produced more problems. And now we have more problems and we need more governance to be able to tackle these problems. So you're
any
like,
system that's forcing women to make certain decisions, I just wouldn't call that feminism to begin with. Women should have the option to choose, do I want to be a stay-at-home mom? Do I want to work? Do I have some mix of both?
Right.
That's the entire point here.
But you are also making an argument that if you are a woman who does run a business and does have employees, that they should be forced to pay that maternity leave.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so
that's like saying taxes are forced. There's certain things the government does to regulate our economy to ensure equality and justice and better outcomes.
Okay, but just so you know, when you do that, like to a small business
every
owner,
other developed country does.
what you are arguing for is supporting big corporations and taking out the little guys because
I'm arguing for supporting people that want to be mothers and also work at the same time.
Right,
the mechanism we do that way, that can be subsidies, taxes.
You guys can't just keep this. You can't say that we can't have we can't get down to the economics of what it actually implies, right?
I have an economics degree, and I can tell you if there's a small business that can't afford to pay maternity leave, the government might probably subsidize them and help cover the costs.
Where's the government getting money from? This is
tax revenue.
Right, exactly. So from us, just to be clear, from us, and this is the thing that gets me about all of these.
But why do you have a problem paying taxes for it, Candace? You want women to stay home with their children. You want women to have you want children to have the best development, which is, according to you, women staying home. So if they are working and need to stop to have children, then they need to have the time to develop the relationship with the children, to heal, all these things, to make sure that you know how much your body goes through. Like, let me see what y'all say. The fact that her stance is rooted in attacking women instead of the system we live in is so gross. It really is, Lilith. It's disgusting me. That's why I was just like, even her stance on abortion. Oh, you shouldn't be able to kill. Okay, Candace, how many children have you adopted? You've given birth 3 times, but how many have you adopted? These children that you think that should be born. And if you don't feel like you could be a mother, because I'm sure that's what you would say, right? Oh, then you should give up your child for adoption. How many orphanages have you visited, Candace? How many adoption agencies have you gone through to, Candace? How many children in the foster care system do you foster, Candace? The answer is 0. Like, what? I really hate how there's this forcing people to become a mother, but then also talking about how women make such horrible mothers, but not allowing them to have the choice to not become a mother, not allowing yourself to have the options to even, like, because I don't live in the States. I live in Canada, which I've said. We have free healthcare. It's starting to change a little bit, but we have free healthcare for the most part. We do have abortion is legal here as long as you get it before the first 3 months. And what she's saying just doesn't make sense to what I know to be true. Like, how are you fostering for women to stay at home with children, but not giving them the opportunity to do it at their best, especially if they are leaving the workforce to become a mother? It just, I don't know. She's gross for real. Like, Lilith is right. She's gross.
These debates. The magic solution that everybody has, that we just need to tax the government more.
Every other developed country has paid maternity leave.
But it's not magic, as in, like, the money is coming. The money is coming from you. It's coming from us. So you're sitting here saying,
that's how taxes work.
Yes, like, we should be raising taxes. Okay, and this is the entire problem, is that the government is already taxing homes times 2, and people are already struggling with what's being taken out of their taxes.
We're not taxing capital gains property.
There are plenty of countries who are thriving with paid maternity leave. There are places even better than Canada. Like France, for example, has better maternity leave than Canada. And in France, I believe they have up to 2 years. They're doing better in the sense of women's mental health in those spaces and things like that. Countries that allow maternity leave have better results with their population, with their mental health as a whole. Like, what is she talking about? Because if you compare any of these countries to the US, women are doing better in these other countries. I just don't know what the hell she's talking about.
Properly, or corporate profits properly,
you
or
have
high
something
income property.
that there's a reason that we should be taxing more here, there.
It's an
point is that
problem.
the reason why families are having
bring in more revenue to help women be mothers.
What I'm saying is that you are just creating a cyclical argument. You're basically saying that women want to be able to have it all. Women cannot have it all because the government
choice to do what they'd like.
Okay, but you're saying women should have the choice to have it all. Okay, so you're saying
a really interesting way of putting, like, do you have it all right now, where you're working and you're also a mother? Is that having it all?
I'm saying that it's not possible for women to have it all. It isn't possible.
Okay, what do you have?
And that's one of
whatever
that
is.
I don't think it's possible for anybody to literally have it all, especially if you're a woman in this society. In a patriarchal society, women can never have it all.
This is what I would want other women to have as well, which is the flexibility to work a job and also raise kids if they'd like.
No, but that's exactly. You guys keep arguing that what people want is more flexibility. So you're acknowledging that right now, with feminism on fire, we are agreeing. Women are going into the workforce. Okay. Like, I'm just kind of using a hyperbolic expression. Feminism is everywhere. We are arguing that women need to have more opportunities. Women need to have more rights. They've taken that. Now you have the majority of people that are graduating with college degrees are in fact women. Men are committing suicide at a higher rate than women. We're looking around the world.
Feminism also would push for, like, increased awareness of men's mental health. So
that's fine. Great. You love feminism. That's great. We already know that. We get it.
Most Americans agree with me, by the way.
Actually,
like, women should have paid maternity leave.
Culture
if you go issue by issue and by values, they might not associate with the term feminism because people like you have made it toxic. But the actual values that undergird feminism are extremely
post, and then when they begin taxing so that we can account for paid maternity leave for 3 months, which basically means a small business owner has to not have an employee while having to pay.
Why is she so concerned about that small business owner? I wonder how many small businesses she has funding her podcast. I mean, she has several endorsers. I don't think any of them are from the small business. And on top of that, this whole idea that small businesses wouldn't be able to survive, well, maybe that's something that we should also fix in policy. Maybe we should also have policies that help small businesses that may have women who need to leave for maternity leave. I'm having trouble pinpointing exactly what she wants to see, especially considering the fact that she herself is a woman who, again, like they keep pointing out, like, you are a woman who works and has children at home and you like working. And the only reason you have the choice that you do to work, especially in the spaces that you do, Candace, is that feminists have brought these rights and opened the doors for you. I don't know. She's so the cognitive dissonance of Christianity is right here. She's not even understanding that she's arguing against herself and who she is and who she presents to be.
Months and months and months, like the person's not there. They're not actually.
Small business doesn't have the revenue to cover paid maternity leave. The government would probably subsidize them to make up the cost.
No, I actually think that the way things were made more sense, where we had an environment where you could afford to take care of children with just one person bringing in income in the house.
Is that possible in the current environment?
You can obviously.
And things are going to get way more expensive with these tariffs as well. Like, it's not going to be easy to afford anything in the coming years.
Is it going to happen overnight? No, but I think we need to be realistic about the fact that the first thing didn't work, right? The entire argument, the first thing was women entering the workforce is going to make everybody happier and richer. That was the
idea is that women having the choice to enter the workforce is better than them being forced to not do that.
Okay.
That's the argument.
Okay, that actually is not the argument at all. The argument was that women would become, and I'm talking about what the feminists got ahead of, and this is why women,
like this imaginary Twitter feminist, but like right now you're talking to me, and that's not the argument.
I'm not actually debating an imaginary Twitter feminist. I'm speaking to you, and I have no idea why you're becoming increasingly more rude when I'm just rebutting your points that you're bringing up.
No, you're not responding to my point.
I am responding to your point. I'm saying that you're creating a cyclical argument where you keep saying that the thing that you just did, that you said was going to be enough. What we actually need is for women to just enter the workforce. Oh, women are in the workforce.
It was not about women being quote unquote happier. It was about women having the freedom and option to choose what they want for their lives. Not every woman wants to be a mother, Candace. Not every woman looks at that as peak fulfillment. She wants women to have nothing. She's not a small business owner. Her sponsors are big Republican businesses. She's an agent of confusion. Absolutely. And that's why I'm just like, what are you talking about? Why do you keep bringing up the small businesses, Candace? Like, you don't give an F about those people. You don't care. Like, stop lying. Women have always worked. The point is choice of work. Absolutely. And also access to be able to work in fields that they've been pushed out of and allowing them to further their interests, not by what's been between their legs, but by what's going on in their mind. It's Jesus.
And actually
not enough. I'm saying we don't have enough because we don't have paid maternity.
And I'm telling you that you're also not going to have enough because you're going to then be complaining when you get that paid maternity leave.
I'm
because
not going to get maternity.
Okay. Well, they are arguing for family paid leave, so
that's even better. Yeah.
Okay. So you might get.
Do you think fathers should also be around to help raise children?
I think who's going to work if everybody goes home every time a child is born?
Not everyone's going to have a kid at the same time.
Pause.
Not only is not everybody's going to have a kid at the same time, but also you don't need to take maternity leave at the same time. Although I think it's a great idea in the beginning when a child is born that both the mother and the father have the time to bond with said child and to create a working environment and getting into the groove of parenthood together. But even if that's not the case, most people don't take it at the same time, from what I understand. From what I understand, it's like the mother would take the first year and then the father would take the second year. Sometimes it's a mix of whether it's 6 months off, 6 months, whatever. But usually the case would be that one would be always working, but one would be available to be home. So the father can take time off to take care of it. You know, usually just because of how nature, if you're breastfeeding, whatever, the woman may need to stay home first. But from what I understand, it's that, didn't she take the maternity leave? Exactly. I believe she did. So it's very weird to me that she's on this issue of maternity leave and thinking that men don't need it, as if both will be out of the home. And even if that's the case, because let's say women and men aren't working in the same places. So she may be working across town at this location and he may be, how would it conflict or hurt? It's not like they're both leaving that same office. Like they work together in the office and that office has now lost 2 people instead of 1. Like, I don't know. Like, she's not landing with me on this. Like, I don't know. I want to know, like, where is your research coming from, Candace? Not just from how you feel and from what you feel from being around your Christian women friends who have all the same mindset as you and all the same indoctrination as you, right? Like, are we talking about a real world perspective of what women want and what they say they need and how hard it is for them and what they're going through, having to leave their babies so early in life and the disconnection they feel and the postpartum they feel and everything else that comes with it? Like, frustrating.
All right. We'll have a male partner. Yeah, nice talking to you as well. My final claim is that feminism has made things easier for men.
Hi.
Hi,
I'm Jenny.
Candace.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
You said that feminism is easier for men, or is
it's made things, I think, easier in society for men. Yeah. Now men don't have to commit, and they're being offered sex from women for free. So they have to actually effectively do less and be motivated less, because feminism has kind of insisted on the culture of sex and hooking up. And I think that has been a net negative for women.
On good faith, I just want to say, I think you're approaching this with like the best interest for women. Like you think that is negative for women and harmful. And I think in some aspects we can agree to that. Yeah. I do think that there are some aspects of sex work or OnlyFans or whatnot that maybe men are definitely the huge consumers of. But if we are so concerned with women putting that out for free, it's charged, right? They're making money off of it. Then why are we not putting the onus more on men for being the one that is in control of that demand, right? So we can take away the supply or, condemn it all we want. But if there's no onus on men to be the consumers of said products, then wouldn't you think that would solve the issue that you're bringing up?
Yeah, I actually agree with you on that. And I really get to that. I want to be very clear. When I say that I'm anti-feminist,
sex work has been around since they've been around. Like, people used to sell their children to whorehouses, Candace. Like, what are you talking about, girl? Like, sex work has always been around. Men have never been completely satisfied with their wives at home. Like, they used to go out and go to the whorehouse and get what they like there, right? Like, just like this lady saying, like, it's supply and demand. Like, the demand is there. So the real problem with OnlyFans and things like that is that, I said this last video, I believe, is that the fact that women are actually in control. They get to make their own money. They're making 6 figures off it. Men do not like that. They want to be in control. They want to feel like they want to be controlled. They want to feel like they have that kind of access to you. Like, online has made it so much easier for women to do sex work safely, right? So, because they don't have to leave their homes. They don't have to share where they are with you. They just simply turn on the camera and there you are, ready with your KY jelly in one hand and your mouse clicker on the other, getting ready to watch whatever content they've made. She's ridiculous.
Feminist. This does not mean that I do not also criticize men. I think that's something that people get very wrong. 1000% agree. I believe the problem was seeded by the feminist movement. I think the sex revolution and telling women, literally were protesting. They didn't have their shirts on. And this used to be just, your grandparents couldn't even imagine this, like women walking down the street and having their boobs out and their butts out on Instagram. And it created an environment where men then had to work harder for a woman's affection, for a woman to take her clothes off. Sex education in the classroom, there's this huge myth that people were just doing it. Like, we might as well teach them because the children are just doing it. Actually, before they introduced sex education, the majority of high school graduates were graduating with their virginity intact. And then within 10 years of sex education, we saw a reversal. So I'm saying feminism actually seeded the problem. And now the problem is bad. And
according to the CDC's Youth Risk Behavior Survey, in 1991, 54% of high schoolers reported having sexual intercourse. That number decreased to 30% by 2021. So it seems as though having sex education has helped, not deducted. And I hate that a lot of people think that sex education isn't important, because a lot of people are told to, especially Christian women, are just told to close your legs before you're married. They don't understand the hormones that their bodies are going through. They don't understand what's happening, why their sex drive is a little bit higher, things like that. They have no understanding. They feel ashamed because of it, which is very natural when you're coming into puberty, and they start exploring behind people's backs because of the shame, but they have these urges and they don't like that. Understanding of yourself and your body is super important. I think I believe I said this in the last video, is that I do truly believe that sex education is needed. I also think that we should start being really honest with little girls about the truth about pregnancy, the truth about childbirth, and the truth about postpartum issues. Everyone says a child's a blessing. It's the greatest thing you can do as a woman. That's what you hear growing up, and you think that's what you're supposed to do, especially in the Christian realm. And you go out there and then when you have this child, well, one, like, you're going through all the pregnancy symptoms, all of a sudden they're telling you, oh yeah, that's normal. Oh yeah, I went through that. Oh, I was sick the whole time. They don't tell you, like, if women were actually telling you, like, yeah, I lost my teeth that second pregnancy. Oh, my foot size went up a whole shoe size while I was pregnant. You know, what else? There's so much pregnancy symptoms that people don't talk about that women go through, that what it does to your body, the fact that you're literally putting your life at risk, right? And because women are now being really knowing these factors, women are now like, I don't even want to have kids. The birth rates are going down. Okay, people don't want children, especially women. Women are really like, I don't want children. I don't want to do that to my body. I don't want to go through that. And I do think, like, if women totally knew the whole thing, more women would probably choose not to have children. And that's why they don't tell you. That's why they don't deliver the package to you with the full truth of what it is to be a woman who is going to give birth, right? They really don't tell you those things. And I think when you do, it makes women, girls think differently, and it makes them make better choices for themselves. It helps them know how to be more careful so they don't end up in those positions. I don't know, just my little 2 cents on that. Let's get back into it.
And it's also bad for men. It's harmful for men to be constantly exposed to pornography and soft pornography. And I think it actually, in many ways, emasculates men.
Okay.
But I would say they are the main social benefactors of that culture because, well, first and foremost, as we're talking about women who have to kind of pick one or the other or try to manage both, and can we have it all? Like, no, you can't have it all. On a day where I really feel like I gave a little bit more to my career, I ache because I go, okay, but like now I feel like I didn't give the same amount to my children. And it's a constant push and pull, and it never feels enough. It really doesn't feel enough.
So, like, to a degree, I think that feminism does.
So why doesn't she leave? Go be with your children, Candace. That way you'll never have to feel that way. You don't have to. You make enough money. You've made enough money. Your husband makes enough money. You don't have to put yourself in this position. So I don't really understand why she keeps trying to put herself out there like she's one of us. You know, like, bitch, you ain't one of us.
It does benefit men. I think that it allows men to be more emotionally intelligent, allows them to understand what that looks like, and also be able to connect with other people, right? But at the same time, there's so much work that feminism has done for women that to say that it benefits men more, I don't think is an accurate statement. For example, Title IX has made it very possible for women to go to college 600% more so, right? And I think that that is a huge benefit that we can credit to the feminist movement. Though I understand your point, though, of trying to say that like sex work is harmful for women and more beneficial for men because they're benefiting from it the most, but at the same time, if you think they're also suffering from it, does that not contradict your point?
Yeah, so I disagree on the fact that, and we do agree that more women are going to college, more women than men are graduating with college degrees. And despite that, people are saying that we still live under a patriarchy. Women are free to start their own companies. Women are free to pay women whatever they want to pay. Women could hire, and in some cases do hire all women. And so I don't really understand, which wasn't your argument to be fair, the idea that even with all of that freedom, women are still not able to achieve what men are able to achieve. I think college education actually has increased women's stress. And I'm talking about in terms of how expensive it is. And I know you're going to then say, well, the solution to that is we have to then move the goalpost. And I'm guessing here.
No, I mean,
but like college should be free. Everything should be free. He thinks,
I think
we just need more free stuff. And obviously nothing's free. We're just going to tax us.
If I could interject,
100%.
I just want to say, I think the issue that we keep coming back to.
I don't understand the issue with education being free, especially when we see that education is so lacking. Like, it's so crazy to me how she aligns herself with capitalism the way that she does. Women aren't even honest about their motherhood experiences. It's sold as a fantasy until reality hits. That part can't be put on men necessarily, but it's a factor. Exactly. And that's what I was saying. Like, women aren't honest about it, right? And especially Christian women, they make it seem like it's the best thing that you could do, even though they tell you, yes, wait for marriage, but bringing a child into this world is going to make you complete, all these things. And that's just not true. If you are in not a mental space to become a mother, and I don't think there's any really mental space you can be, but obviously a lot of people enter motherhood from traumatic spaces in regards to them not being fully prepared and not having the full knowledge of what it is to become a mother. I think that, and I said it before, like, I think that's one of the biggest things. I think we should have these real conversations, talk about it thoroughly, and be 100% honest. But you're right. Women aren't honest about motherhood experiences. It is sold as a fantasy. And then when reality hits, they blame and judge the woman. But you didn't prepare her You know what I mean? You didn't prepare her. You weren't honest with her to be able to make that decision. The people are undereducated, but Candace doesn't think education should be free for the people. Exactly. And I don't understand that at all.
Is that you believe that women would be happiest in the home where they don't have to work. And I think most people in general probably wouldn't want to work anyways. But I think the main issue that we keep avoiding is that this is not an issue created by feminism. This is an issue created by capitalism.
Yeah, so I've heard this argument that it's an issue created by capitalism.
But you don't agree. You think feminism is the greater issue than the system
think that now the issue
more money to live.
Well, we have to spend more money to live,
right.
I think in large part because feminists got duped by the government. And I think we just keep further enslaving ourselves to the government. I'm not a person who believes in big government. And yet you find that feminists are constantly like, well, we can deal with the college issue. We just need more government. We can deal with the...
I think that's funny because a lot of her ideas have been aligning with big government. It's odd to see. It's odd to hear.
Needing to have more benefits. We just need more government. So it's like, okay, let's just tax every household 100%. And I'm trying to prevent that. And I'm saying that there was a time in America, and what's aspirational for me is I was, raised in part by my grandparents. They were very happy. They were just, I lived in that environment of what that looked like. And I think for many of people who didn't grow up there.
Again, her experience, she's saying is everyone's experience. But we know that's not true. And it's very short-sighted and ignorant.
Feminism has taught us, and I say this as someone who had to take feminism 101 courses when I was in college, that it was like this nightmare, and people weren't happy, and people were suffering, and women were
suffering.
People were being forced, and that there weren't actually these things that just marriages that worked, that the women actually weren't disempowered by being the CEOs of their household.
Well, allowing women to have more choice and freedom and agency to leave.
Sorry, you've been voted out by the majority.
I did enjoy this conversation. Being very respectful.
I was thinking that a lot of your claims are very contradictory, saying that we live in a matriarchy, that men benefit from feminism more. I would like to understand why, again, you think that men benefit from feminism more?
Basically, because men don't have to commit to women. Men are still able to do what they're doing, and they are allowed to basically step away from all of the responsibilities of what it really meant to be a man and lead a household. And that's in large part, I think, due to the sexual revolution.
I mean, is it really bad that we don't have to give men the chase? Don't they have gratification from chasing us? Like, it's a hunter versus prey situation to me. So I feel like a lot of relationships, especially back then, were based on trying to get to home run like very fast. And now that we have the freedom to not commit and not tie ourselves to one man for the rest of our life, I just don't necessarily think that's bad. I just don't think the revolution has decreased our value. We're not chewed gum. We're people who value connection. And sex doesn't always have to have this deep meaning. It is just connection and intimacy between two people who trust each other. And why do we have to deny women that gratification? Like, men, you say, that are wired to want that. Why not women? Why?
Well, we again, I go back to just our basic biological differences.
And I'm going to say this, and I know it's kind of like fucked up. But I'm going to say it anyways. Because I feel like a lot of women in Candace's position, like, I don't know. I feel like, am I being a misogynist by saying this? But I'm just like, I'm thinking of the statistic of sexual gratification. Apparently, if I'm not mistaken, it's somewhere between 70 to 80% of women have never experienced an orgasm. Women do not know their bodies enough to even get sexual gratification. And with that high number, I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, I bet Candace has never had an orgasm. But I feel like it's wrong for me to say, counterproductive, whatever it may be. But when I think of that, it's like a lot of women don't even know their bodies like that. And it's because of this whole idea of the purity and the lack of experience. And also the fact that we are really not allowed or even encouraged to learn our bodies for ourselves via, masturbation, which I think is completely healthy. And I think that if more women were in control of their sexuality in that way, knowing how to please themselves, knowing what they like, it would disrupt things further. But I feel like I'm just like, Candace, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like, she really I don't know. I kind of feel weird about saying it. I feel like I'm being mean and I'm being like, kind of like a bitch about it. But that's what came to mind when they started talking about this. And it kind of felt like, I don't know, she just looks so like constipated sometimes. And I'm just like, do you even enjoy sex, Candace? Like, have you had enjoyable sex, you know? And the thing is, like, a lot of people don't even know what they're missing until they get it. Like, a lot of people think that they like sex because it feels kind of good, but have never experienced the bliss of what an orgasm could bring. And not experiencing that makes them accept less from men because they don't necessarily enjoy it because they haven't learned how to enjoy it for themselves. If that's making sense, you guys can let me know if I'm making sense or if I'm just being a bitch in the comments. But women have to teach each other about their own bodies, but they're taught to wait on Jesus. He may be coming, but it's not for you. I'm sorry. And the flip on the coming, like, okay, let me get back into this. I'm sorry, y'all.
It says there was a really interesting book that was done by a biophysicist. He, I think, recently passed away, named Edward O. Wilson, where he just sort of breaks down the biological arguments. Basically, he looks in the wild to see the behavior of animals. His thesis is just that you basically can never beat your own biology. And then he kind of compares it to what we see here as just humans and our social interactions and things that have been abundantly clear when you look at every civilization over time, whether it's from, 400 BC to LA today. What are these habits that you can see that never go away? And people coming together and starting families is one of these things because we are biologically wired to find a family, to settle down, and to have children. And I think when you have women that are going out and they're giving all of the goods up for free.
The goods?
The goods. I'm not going to say, the goods up for free. Men are not.
The goods for free from men, and that we are very happy with those.
You can certainly do that. And there's
connections. We're not sockeye salmon. We're not made to breed and have families and then die.
You are welcome to do that. I'm just saying that when it comes time for you to find a partner, you may find yourself in a circumstance where men don't value you as high because men like you spoke to, men like to compete. They like to feel like they've won something.
I'd like to deprive men of that because they don't need to have that. Sure. That's actually
but you did bring up.
Yeah. And that's what you say, that men are, essentially predatory, and we have the goods that we have to keep from them.
Oh, I didn't mean the goods in a bad way.
But that's such an objectifying way, the goods, the grocery goods.
Honestly, I think that that's just kind of in colloquial songs today. I think
we have value apart from how many people we sleep with, how many, you also devalue education for women. And I think that's very interesting because you're also a very educated woman. Mm-hmm. And in a lot of ways, this is just an observation. You devalue yourself a lot.
I definitely do not feel like I'm devaluing myself.
Make him a sandwich?
Yeah. Yes, which is the title of my book.
Yes, feed your men and everything. Feed the people that you love. Because family isn't defined just by your partner or your kids. Family is community, and you should care about your community. And understanding that, I just don't think you really care about the community that much when you're pushing this rhetoric of devaluing women so much to stay in the kitchen, stay within the homes. And also saying that they're wasting money on college when education is very important. There's a lot of female scientists.
Pause. You've been voted out.
Sorry.
You've been voted out.
I don't know. Let me see what y'all are saying. What happened to the comment? Okay, no new comments. I'm coming back and forth from the page. Let's continue on.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
What's your name?
I'm Zola Stone.
Very nice to meet you, Zola. You have very pretty eyes.
Thank you. So you keep talking about OnlyFans and Kim Kardashian and I do OnlyFans and I'm a stripper as well.
So you're in the sex industry?
I'm mainly a recording artist, but I do that to fund the music.
Okay.
But, you're saying basically that we kind of devalue ourselves, but at the same time, I'm celibate. I still consider myself a woman of God. And so, not all of us are just out there just, oh, hey, showing the goods, we do respect our bodies still. So I don't like that you kind of putting us all in one box.
Yeah. So we have to, in order to have debates, we have to make generalizations. Of course, there can be some exceptions to the rule. But what I'm trying to understand is how can you say that you're not, giving up your body if you are a stripper?
Well, because I said I'm celibate. I still want to get married. I still want to have kids. And for some of us, it's hard for us to have kids. And I've also dealt with sexual abuse since a child, so I wasn't doing any sexual work as a child, and still went through things like that.
Yeah. So I first want to say, perfectly sympathetic to everything you're saying, especially if you come from an environment where you've lived through something when you're a kid. It makes it infinitely harder. And it's actually a reason why so many people turn to sex work, because they don't have that structure at home that gives them, I think, other options. But would you agree with me that if you could, like, that wouldn't have...
I went to college for music production.
For music production.
I went to LA recording school.
Okay, so did you decide to be a stripper because of economic restraint or because of freedom?
For freedom. You know, we want the choice to do whatever we want with our bodies.
Okay.
You know, I don't think it matters if...
OnlyFans for Jesus is so fucking funny. OnlyFans for Jesus is fucking funny. I don't care. Because I'm like, if you guys could see my face, and maybe I should have, like, it's my light is charged operated and it didn't charge, so it's too dark in here, so I was like, okay, let me just not be on camera. But when she was describing it and then saying that I'm still a child of God, and, like, again, that indoctrination, it makes me feel so sad for her, because the trauma that she experienced when she was little probably pushed her to really, it's easy to indoctrinate people who have gone through this kind of trauma. And it's that cognitive dissonance that she's not getting, that, like, Christian women will never truly accept her. They'll probably do, like, oh, I don't judge, but you know what God says. And she's kind of trying to make herself as a square fit into a circle. And you could tell even by the interaction that she, like, I don't know, I can hear the emotion in her voice. She's very, I could hear her sadness and her unhappiness. And I know that what she's doing for survival. I honestly don't have a problem with sex work. Get that money, right? As long as you're safe. But you could tell that she also has a lot of self-judgment of herself. She knows that the women likely in her community, as she is a Christian, so in her Christian community, feel the way Candace feels. And I don't know about y'all, but, like, I hear hurt in her voice this whole time. It's only like she wants Candace's acceptance as a Christian woman, because it affects her deeply. She knows that the women in her community are, like, not for her, that they feel as Candace does in regards to what she does to simply survive. And I don't know, it just makes me sad. That's why it just makes me sad, y'all. She's probably the pet project at church. Absolutely, she's the pet project at church. Absolutely, she is. They're definitely all, like, praying for her. God's going to deliver you out of this situation. Although, if you think about it, why isn't her local church helping her so that she doesn't have to do these things that are, I guess, not of God, right?
You do want to dress how you want to dress. That doesn't mean, oh, you can, sexually abuse or sexually harass.
Okay, do you think the men that are being brought into the strip clubs to watch you, do you think that they're walking away and going, I did that because that woman was empowered to take off her clothes? Or do you think that they're actually devaluing women?
No, I get it. I used to be that hypocrite. I said things that I said I would never do anything like that, like, I totally get that. But some people just want to go to the club and have a good time.
Yeah, I think most of the people who are making those decisions are doing it because they're dealing with addictions themselves. I think you're worth more than taking your clothes off. I think that if you wanted to have a career in music, you wouldn't have to take your clothes off to do that. And I think that it's sad that you've been...
Every story is different.
Every story is different, but I do think that, we can make a generalization.
I was at that point where I was going to college. I was working 3 jobs. I used to be a nurse. So you just don't know the situations. You don't know how life is going to turn out. It's going to be ups and downs. But no, I didn't want to do it. But in my situation and things that I went through, it's something that
But I'm actually really glad that you said, no, I didn't want to do it. And you were put in a situation where you had to do it, because I think that's really honest. And I think the problem that I find with feminism is that it's a dishonest movement.
All right, guys, pause.
But not every woman feels like her, Candace. Like, I know of so many dominatrix women who never let a man touch them, and they treat men like crap. That's the sex industry. They have perfectly fine. I wish that I had the confidence to friggin' step out and do such. I think I would make a great dominatrix. And I would make a bag too. How do I get into that? But again, look at her. She was struggling, working 3 jobs, and she didn't want to do it, but she is doing it. It's making her good money. And I feel like she feels like she has, the reason why she says that is she has to feel bad about it, right? Because of her upbringing, because of how women like Candace make her feel in her community, things like that. I think that's more stemming from that, from what she's actually doing, because she enjoys the money or she wouldn't be doing it, right? Like, it's fast money, it's easy money in a lot of ways for a lot of people. And she feels ashamed of the path that she took because of her indoctrination. OnlyFans for the building funds. It's it's why nobody can pay their rent. Deacon and First Lady getting bankrolled by the pew warmers. Price of salvation. Clap them cheeks and turn the other cheek. Oh my God, I have tears. I have real tears. I can't with you. I cannot. Sorry, I'm going to...
Been voted out by the majority.
Thank you. I'm not judging.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Catherine. Candace.
You brought up a book about that we are going to biology, and that biology is what we should organize society on based on like what skills men are good at.
I can restate what I said. There is a book, and the argument that's being made is that you can't override, you can't outthink your biology is the easiest way to say it. So feminism, I would say, is a movement where they're trying to outthink biology, meaning that all we have to do is this, and that, and then magically we're going to be transformed, and that desire within us to want to start a family is just going to like die, or we're going to be happy.
I hate that she keeps saying the desire within us, the desire within us, the desire within us. Who is us? How come Jubilee hasn't done like a statistic check on that? Like, what is she talking about?
Doing this thing. And I think the answer to that is no.
Right. I would argue that our biology does not have as much of an effect on the things that we choose to do with our careers, with our life choices, as you think it does. Our closest ancestors are chimps and bonobos. Bonobos are matriarchal, chimps are patriarchal. So, and our previous societies have run egalitarian for millennia. It's not been this inherent desire for men to rule a certain way and women to rule another way. It has been egalitarian. It's been matriarchal. It's been patriarchal because there are things that go into.
Finally, a woman who knows her history, y'all. And I know Princella talks a lot about this, but I know she took a different route and perspective, and I understand that as well. Because I actually learned a lot, like what threw me into really deep diving and learning about matriarchy, getting the book When God Was a Woman, I could say stemmed from what I learned from Princella. I don't really follow her too much, but a lot of her videos, when I first discovered her, like when she did she has a video on the bonobo tribe, and she compared the matriarchy and she explained the genealogy. I love shit like that. So her videos like that definitely took me in. There was some other stuff going on that happens in her circle that I don't know. I don't vibe there personally, but I have a lot of respect for Princella because she did introduce me to that aspect. She's the reason why I deep dived and started deconstructing patriarchy, was a lot of the stuff that I heard her talking about, and I was very interested, and I looked into it more, and here I am, right? So I'm actually glad I'm actually glad this girl is kind of coming from that perspective, because this whole idea, like, it's biology. It's the way we were when for millennia we were matrilineal, we were matriarchies, we were egalitarian, you know, that egalitarian society that I believe we should be in. Again, I do think that women would come out more on top in more situations just because of our brain function and how we are just more wired to lead, which makes sense because we are the original beings, and, you know, men come from us and are a mutation of us. So I do actually like think that way, but I was like really hoping someone would come up and look, we're almost at the end of the video, and here it is.
To affect like your situation, your personality, that make you better at doing something than just your biology. I know many quiet, nerdy men that would not be good leaders, and I know many strong women, and vice versa. Like, it does not matter as your testosterone, the hormones you emit, is not going to have as much of an effect as I think you think it does.
I totally think it does. And so that's why, let's getting back to college, since I'm assuming you support women going to college.
Yeah.
Can you explain why there is, when they can freely choose, why there is such a difference in the majors that women choose versus the majors that men choose when they get to college?
Well, I think it's also important to note that things are changing, and there's like many initiatives to get more women into STEM, to get women into higher paying career fields. When women have been kept out of these fields for so long, it's a slow and steady race to get them there.
Exactly. Women are not encouraged to be in these fields. Even when feminism brought in the whole idea of like women going to school and women being educated, women were still pushed to do courses that aligned with their feminine ideal stereotype prospect. So I don't know, Candace, whatever.
It's not that women are not choosing them. They're slowly learning that this is okay for them to choose. There's more women in STEM. There's more lawyers. There's more women. Women are making up strides to those positions. So it's not like they're sedentary and they're staying in these humanities or arts fields.
I don't think you're being honest. I think did you go to college?
I mean, I'm in college. I think I know that
women aren't, it's not because they're not pressured. It's because when quite literally they say, what are you interested in? Women flock to certain things. They just do. We do. We as a whole do. It tends to be, and this is because we are biologically wired. And even when a child is born, when a woman, like a female, a child versus a male child, the girls start speaking faster and they speak more words. Just a fact, right? For the rest of their lives. Like my daughter started speaking, and this is not anecdotal, but I'm giving you an anecdotal example of something that is a real fact. So there's just a biological proclivity there that women like communication. And you see that followed all the way, as an example, into college. Women are drawn toward these careers that are...
Girls, in fact, do everything earlier than boys. We mature earlier than them. We walk, talk, I don't understand what she thinks she's proving. Biologically, we do things earlier. Okay, Candace.
Are compassionate, emotional, and communicative, which is why you'll see women flooding journalism. That's why even when you see women that are finding success, they are typically in careers that are communicative and compassionate. Women that will say, I want to...
You mean like politics? Like how politics should be, Candace? Compassionate? With empathy? Sounds like they're more equipped to be in leadership positions because of those aspects. I don't understand how you could be in a leadership position without it. In fact, being in leadership positions without those aspects has been what we had with patriarchy. Now we're under human extinction. It's the first of its kind. We've never had an extinction that like we are going through now. And it's because of men. It's okay though, Candace.
I want to do psychology. I want to do children's psychology. And so even at the same time that women are saying that they're running away from their biology, so to speak, they are still exhibiting that they very much believe in these determined biological characteristics that I think are something that's just never going to go away.
Right. But I would also bring up that the way that young girls are given dolls, young boys are put in sports. These things that kids learn at a very early age are very impactful in what children like and pursue in the future. It's not simply that I don't think there's a biological gene that women like fashion and men don't. That's why we do see men in fashion. That's why there's actually at the top of all these fashion houses, a lot of men are in successful positions in fashion.
Okay, not the girlie taking all my points. That's what I'm talking about. But also what she just said. Oh, what did she just say? It just slipped my mind. Let me go back a little bit, y'all, because she said something that I wanted to touch on.
Impactful in what children like and pursue in the future. It's not simply that I don't think there's a biological gene that women like fashion and men don't. That's why we do see men in fashion. That's why there's actually at the top of all these.
Did you know that high heels were first invented for men? High heels were first invented for men. Makeup was first invented for men. Women, I tell you, it's like a whole, what is it, like inverted? Like it's just, everything is like bizarro worlds, right? Like, gender socialization app. Isn't communication necessary for leadership roles? Exactly. So even these things that are considered girly were actually, right now, like it's literally like the things that we love is pretty much women in male dominated fields. Like this, it came from men, like all these things. The wigs, men, we used to wear wigs. Like men started wearing wigs, like everything they hate about us and what we do. I think maybe it is because they know that it was for them. You know what I mean? Maybe they're just jealous. They really just want to go back to playing in their makeup and putting on their heels and wearing their wigs and staying home and taking care of the children, just like they did in ancient Egypt and ancient Ethiopia when things were matriarchal, as we learn in When God Was a Woman by Merlin Stone. right? I think that's exactly what it is. Male peacocks have all the feathers and do all the twerking for a mate. Exactly. And even what you said about, in nature, most of nature is matriarchal. And even in the patriarchal versions of it that you see in nature, usually they have only 2 males to a flock of women, because the males are too aggressive. They will start raping the women, and even they will start, it just causes a whole bunch of problems when there's too many males around. That's why even with lionesses and male and the pride, right? Usually there's there's less males than there are women, and that's in the matriarchy still. So I think it's funny that even Candace is like, nature. But if you look at nature, majority of the systems, whether you look at the bees, lions, hyenas, elephants, all matriarchal beings, all of them. So when you look at the natural, the animal kingdom, you will see that they actually all do kind of work within a matriarchy. So if we're saying, if you can look at nature and be like, this is the natural order of things, then you would have to say that matriarchal societies are the natural orders of things.
These fashion houses, a lot of men are in successful positions in fashion. The way in which you teach children to explore creativity and to play, and what we put women in, we put women in pink rooms and little girls in pink rooms and boys in blue rooms. That has an effect.
So, and I'll tell you why I disagree. And I know because I had my children back to back that there's a blur here. So I never had to.
I know because I had my children back to back. That doesn't mean you know anything about anything. You just know what happens in your own household. Your children are not a monolith to all children, Candace. It's really irritating me how it reflects back to her own experiences amongst her own peers who are all like friggin' women of Gilead, right? Like, I swear, she would be Serena if we were to do Handmaid's Tale. Like, if this were to become a Handmaid's Tale, she would be a Serena. And it's insane. Okay, let's go.
To separate them and say, you play with this, you play with that. They were growing up with their toys. I mean, 1 year apart, my daughter and my son. They just are interested in different things. And this is one of the, I think, lies of feminism. And when you actually have children, there may be some exceptional child, but I am telling you, my boy's first word was car. He's obsessed with trucks. He's obsessed with cars. I did not do that. I don't like having to answer his questions about cars. I don't like having to answer his questions about trucks because my biological proclivities are not designed. I'm just not feeling passionate about engineering, wanting to know how everything works. You don't recognize that. And this is, I think, one of the worst harms of feminism, because I was a feminist when I was in college, or I at least thought I agreed with the movement, because you don't have the family yet. So when they make these arguments that you're making, you think that that's real. You think, oh, well, it's just because you're not giving the child the Barbie doll, that they don't love Barbie dolls. And that's not a reality. We are just quite literally different.
All right, I'm so sorry. Time is up.
I am going to choose Jenny to have a...
Oh my gosh. So we're getting towards the end. This has been very interesting. Again, Christian women are not beating my allegations. Okay, they're just not. We can't trust you in women empowerment movements, whether you're conservative or liberal. It just doesn't make sense to me. I love this comment. The male of the species do all the flamboyant displays. Absolutely. Ratio is 80-20, female, male, not 50-50. Absolutely. Something definitely went awry. Mama Earth is mad at whoever is rummaging through her sacred garden. I think what went awry is that the overpopulation of men. And I think that was men did that on purpose. They know, and that's why they don't really care too much about great victims and things like that. They know that they've created a society where those things are more likely to happen, but they need more men to control the women because all they really have is numbers and strength. They mentally brainwash us. And like I said, it's much like as a Black woman, it likens to what was done to my race of people, right? They mentally enslaved us, physically enslaved us, so much so that we are only now just being able to rip out the indoctrination and look at what's really happened and done to us. And it's the same for women, which is why I like my channel and why I created my channel. And well, I didn't create my channel with this aspect in mind, but why it's become this way. Because we really need to know our history in order to be able to move forward. We need to be real about who's surrounding us and what kind of communities we can build. We need to be aware, and we really just need to heal. We need to heal and be able to really make communities that work for us as women. I have a lot of great ideas. I don't have all the answers. And I don't think that I would never want to be like the head of any community. I personally feel like if women were to come together and really try to create a matriarchal community, it would have to be something like a council. It shouldn't be one dictator at all. I think all perspectives should be welcome, and it would take several people coming together in order to make something like that work. But this is not about that. We're going to get back into it. We're almost done with this video. Then we can kind of talk. I don't know if you guys want to come up and say your piece. I would love that. I can definitely send the link to invite people up if you guys have something to say. I do have some time tonight. You guys can let me know in the comment section. I know there's like, 8 of us here right now. And you guys can let me know if you kind of want to come up and discuss it, or if you're just good with just, ending the stream. But let's continue. Let's finish this up, and we could talk about it.
Have a further conversation with, because I thought that it was a respectful dialogue, and I want people to be able to learn from the differences. And I think she is probably the best equipped person to get that done.
My claim is that I believe feminism is wrongly interpreted as anti-men when it benefits both men and women.
It's a great claim. I like that claim.
Thank you.
Okay. So I think that in today's environment, when you look at the messaging that's coming out from self-proclaimed feminists, it's very much an F men, men can't do anything, women can do bad all by themselves sort of colloquial messaging, which I think is harmful to men and to women. I have seen examples of people that I truly do think are more old school who don't do that. But I think in 2025...
Again, I've seen examples. But do your examples measure up to the statistics? That's what I want her to explain, how they measure up to statistics on these topics. She never really gets into that. It's just, I feel, and I know, and I know personally, in the way that I grew up, and my grandparents. What happened to Candace's parents? Are they married? I'm just wondering, because she said she was raised by her grandparents. What happened to your parents, Candace? But I'm not hating or anything, because my parents got divorced when I was 4. I don't know, Candace, but my mom raised me. My dad kind of did his own thing. He was around but not around. You know what I'm saying? But okay.
We've landed on the side of this. It is, I think, rising to a level of just being anti-men, which is not what I think it was supposed to be aspirationally.
Okay. In response to that, I would just like to say, I think that in all ideologies and beliefs, there is a spectrum, right? And on either side, there's going to be a radical point of view. I do understand how it may come across as negative when women say things like, I hate all men, or F men this, F men that. But I'm also, as a woman, not going to fault other women for having that perspective and fear, because unfortunately our greatest predator is men. Our greatest harm does come from men. And therefore, when women have experienced violence from men, when women have experienced oppression from men, I'm not going to fault them for feeling that way and expressing such. And I think the onus does rely more on men for acknowledging that these issues do exist. It is harming women. And unfortunately, a lot of men don't listen to women, and they actually would rather listen to other men. While that may seem like negative messaging, if we can get past the idea of, oh, this feels like it's attacking my character, like I feel like feminism is attacking me as a man, then I think that we can have a much more productive discussion and move forward in making sure that this society is better for everybody. And I do believe that feminism benefits men as well. And I think that's also misunderstood and misinterpreted in that when we hear that, instantly we turn off, we don't want to listen, right? But when we look at historically what feminism does, it's actually trying to bring women at an equal level to men, give them the same opportunities and options as men, and also not receive the same judgment that men do for the same actions. And so I believe that when men are exposed to more female role models, when men are exposed to more feminine or feminist-leaning women, they actually have higher quality of life. They have conversations that they can have with their loved ones. All the men that I know in my life are feminists, and it is because they are feminists that we all have a beautiful community and beautiful friendships.
Yeah, so I would actually even expand it to say that not only is feminism hostile to men, but it's also very hostile to women. And I think you saw a lot of example of that today, where there seems to be a reaction when a woman says children are beautiful. It's like, oh my God, how dare you say that? Like having a child, and it's like, why?
What? Nobody had that reaction when she said that. It was probably the reaction to abortion that got you a little bit of a pushback. It wasn't that children are beautiful. It's the fact that you believe that it's a woman's place to have children, and that's where she gets all her fulfillment, that had people rolling their eyes, Candace. Now you're just trying to be like the victim in the situation. I don't like that.
Like, why is there this instant reaction to people that are traditional? And you see that when we have a society which is really kind of being dominated by what I would call like this hyper sexual character, like of the Kim Kardashian prototype of feminism, weighed against the other extreme, which would be like the Lena Dunham types who are coming out. Lena Dunham's much more the F men forever. Kim Kardashian is kind of the, when I was saying like, come get everything for free, you know, that sort of a model. And I think both of them reject tradition in a way that there's a little bit of hatred there for women who don't want to climb the ladder and work 45 hours a week for a small paycheck, and who actually aspire to marriage. They think that there's something intrinsically backwards about that. They think that
I don't think feminists have a problem. I really do think, like most feminists, and I don't even consider myself a feminist. Like I've said that before. I mean, I guess technically I am with some of the rhetoric that I have and whatever, but I don't really know if I would actually, because I do kind of feel like the feminist movement is kind of like white woman leading. You know what I mean? Leaning like towards them, you know, and I feel like those white women who lead on feminism don't really care about people of color, or they want our support, but they don't really want our problems or to deal with their problems. Our problems kind of get put on the back burner, but this is not about that. I said all that to say, like, her views on how feminists feel about women who are traditional, it's because women who are traditional usually feel like that's the place of women. It's not that they're just like, well, this is what I want to do. They think it's what all women should do, like Candace. So it's not that they care that women like Candace want to stay home and be traditional housewives. It's the fact that women like Candace push the narrative that that's all we're good for, that's our position in life, and that's the only way that we could be fulfilled.
Think that there's something wrong with women who are wholesome and happy, and they instantly try to problematize that. And I'd say one of the greatest cultural examples of that today was like the feminist attack on Ballerina Farm, which just kind of came out of nowhere. It was so weird. I'm like, we have an example of every feminist on the cover of everything, and it's like, but no, this woman can't have 10 million followers. She's not allowed to have 10 million followers. We have to take her down. And that, to me,
nobody wanted to take Ballerina Farm down. If I'm thinking of the right thing, the Ballerina Farm was that lady and her husband. They're super wealthy, but she's like home with like almost 10 kids. She complains all the time about how tired she is. They don't have a lot of help. I mean, her husband got her an egg apron to collect eggs for their anniversary or something like that. And it was like, she could see the disappointment in her face. Like, everything he buys her is to help her work better for him while he's at work doing whatever he's doing. If I'm thinking of the right situation. And I think people came forward and was like, this is like, she doesn't really seem all that happy and fulfilled. Like, she had this whole, it's like she gave up her whole self and her whole career to be this wife and mother, but she ultimately seems extremely stressed out. She doesn't seem appreciated. The things that she says about her partner, her husband, in that interview that kind of like set the internet on fire, from what I remember, was extremely problematic in the fact that he really, and how he shows up to help with the children and things like that. I don't think it really had anything to do with the fact that she was a trad wife. I think it was because she spoke a lot of, not regret, but what word am I thinking of? I don't know, but we're going to continue. There's only a little bit left.
That, to me, is the greatest example of what modern feminism has become, because they pretend it's about choice, but in reality, they want every woman to enter the workforce and to pretend that they're happy in the workforce from a 9-to-5 job trying to compete with men. And I think if people are being honest, the overwhelming majority of women are doing that because of financial power, not because they're really happy. And that's why they're binge drinking on the weekends. And
okay, I disagree with that. I think that feminism just gives women options. And if you want to be a stay-at-home like wife and you want to be a trad wife, that's fine. Feminism is not, in my opinion, and I think a lot of other people agree with me, feminism is not the belief that you can't do those things and we're trying to convince women that they have to work. I believe that feminism is, if you want to work, go do that. Go get that bag, you know? But if you don't and you want to be a stay-at-home wife, then there shouldn't be consequences for doing that. And I think the whole ballerina farm discussion is kind of highlighting some of the consequences. We see a woman who wanted to be a ballerina but gave up that passion and dream to be a mother. And I don't think that it's wrong to want both. I think that I think there's value in being a mother. I think there's value in having a family, right? I work with kids all the time as a swim teacher. I love kids. But at the same time, I don't want to have to choose between kids and my career path or my progress.
Choose, and that's another thing, is they just keep rejecting her answering this question 1,000 times. Of course, when you're young and before you have kids, the things that I wanted to do aspirationally has radically transformed from now that I'm married. It suddenly, everything came into focus, and really I understand that family is what it's all about. It's like you have your first kid and you change entirely. Your focus changes. And I do find exactly what you're saying is that even when she herself says, this is what I wanted, I was not forced to give up, that's what I wanted when it was just me in my life. And I went to Juilliard and I did what I wanted to do. And I danced as a ballerina. And then my husband moved to support me as a ballerina. And then I got pregnant. And when you have a child, your entire world changes instantly in a moment. And it's hard to describe that to someone who doesn't have a child yet, because when I was there, I didn't understand it either. So I actually would have agreed more with you. Until that moment happens, you don't get it. And so what I'm saying is that to see people constantly try to problematize her life when she's like, I have 8 kids now. It's like, not only do I love kids, I have 8 of them, and I'm cooking and I'm going to school and I'm bringing them with me to Ireland. And the attacks on the trad wife culture, it just shows you that there is fundamentally a hatred for tradition. And I think that hatred is being bred into women. And ultimately,
but you're not following the natural order of tradition, because this form of tradition has only been around for about 6,000 years, Candace. I really wish you would take the time to study what life was like prior to this patriarchal construct that is built on systematic oppression in several different ways, whether it's gender, sexuality, whatever the case may be. Like, she's missing the point completely.
When you find those women at 50 who have chased their careers, it has been my experience, and they don't have family, that they suffer from tremendous unhappiness. Again,
it is my experience. That's not your experience. You're saying what you're speaking for others the way that you don't want people to speak for you as a trad wife, right? All these assumptions that she's making about women who are liberal, who are feminists. She's doing what she feels is being done to her.
Miss that window of opportunity to start a family.
I mean, I would like to disagree with that point that feminism is hating on the trad wife life. I think there is a misrepresentation of that life that's being fed to people. For example, people like Nara Smith and Ballerina Farm they're social media content creators. That is their job, right? So it's not that they're just a stay-at-home mom. Content creation itself, as I'm sure you're aware, is also a job, right? So they are not actually fully trad wives. They also are working. And on top of that, they are marketing this lifestyle that is not attainable by everybody. It's not feasible. And I think you agree with this too, to be spending 8 hours cooking, like, I don't know, chocolate chip cookies from scratch where you've harvested the cocoa yourself. You know what I mean? And it's not feasible in our current economic system, right? And maybe that's what people want, and that's great. And I don't think feminism is the one that's telling you shouldn't want this. I disagree with that strongly. I think feminism is telling you that if you want to pursue that, that's great. That's for you.
I've never met a feminist that didn't find a problem with the trad wives. And that's my point, is that it's this illusion.
Well, you're meeting one now.
Because as soon as I said something traditional, everyone rejected. I said, you will get more purpose and
I think that's
joy from raising you get joy from raising a child. And everyone acted like when I said you get joy from raising a child, like I had stabbed them in the chest.
Well,
like, guys, shouldn't we just like understand that children are like, it's a good thing to inspire
I don't
children?
think any of us here hate kids. I think the point is, it's not about, oh, I've mentioned something traditional and this is the reaction that I'm getting from it. It's that it's almost like you're making an assumption that this applies to everybody.
I am making a generalization,
Right.
and I am
And that's what
saying
people
that
are reacting to.
if the majority of women did not invest time to start a family, women would be miserable. And I think that recognizing that when women start to, like, the biological clock is real, and when women start to recognize that they spend so much time trying to climb a ladder and they maybe don't find a partner.
I'm going to do a video on the biological clock, because women aren't the only ones who have a biological clock. Men do too. They just don't speak about it. And let me write that down. I got to write it down because I will forget. I constantly think of ideas for videos and my mind runs a mile a minute. The bio clock lie. Hold on, guys. I know we're just there on the thing, but that's such a lie. Men do actually have a biological clock as well. and it's not in favor of them, and it does affect them. But let's go.
A partner, and it's harder to find a partner now because, as I said, we have devalued ourselves by giving up sex so freely. I do see that there is an increase in those types of women who are relying on drugs to make them happy, whether they're
right, but not everybody wants marriage, and not everybody wants a relationship.
I think overwhelmingly, women do want the safety of.
I think overwhelmingly women want those things because in a patriarchal world, those things are necessary to help you feel safe, to help you feel secure. I think a lot of women are like, I'm not going to even bother to think about having children unless I can have the security of what comes from, I guess, the traditional housewife lifestyle. I don't have a problem with that, because I think if you're asking a woman to lay her life on the line, that you should be able to provide her with the space to be able to heal properly and to be her best self and to have the best pregnancy ever. And if you can't, and you need to put her in a position where she has to work and all these things, then of course, you know, those have ramifications. Like, that's supposed to be, like she said, a beautiful time in your life. And a lot of the reason, and a lot of women are actually more stressed, more when they get into pregnancy and they have to work and things like that. That's not good for the child. That's not good for the baby. I don't know, Candace.
A relationship and a happy home. And I think that feminism lies to you and tells you that you don't until it's too late. And that is what I do a lot of work trying to get women to understand.
Yeah, no, and I understand that you're trying to.
And community and family is more than just your biological children. You have friends, you have nieces and nephews. Like, that doesn't mean, just because you don't have your own children does not mean that you don't have family.
All right, I'm sorry, that's time. I do apologize.
You have people who are coming because they want to create a social media moment. And these are always, I've done so many events, the most frustrating things because nobody's learning. And I also think it's something that women that are young need to come to terms with, or they're going to end up on the other side and be miserable and be popping pills like a lot of women who bought into the illusion of feminism did. So it was frustrating, but also people can see like how many times I just wasn't allowed to speak.
It is important to interrupt conservatives, specifically conservatives like Candace, because once you do that, their fallacies will show themselves.
Today, it felt like one conservative, 19 cisgender mainstream feminists, and the weird queer person just kind of hanging out. We absolutely are part of the feminist movement, and I hope the mainstream gets that one day.
I think that Candace herself is a great example that you can do both. And when you have a society and a culture that encourages women to do what they want, how they want, in a way that is safe and healthy, you will see that women can do it all, as she said, and be happy. I don't think that you have to choose between having kids and having a career. And I think that that is like a fundamentally misleading argument.
All right, y'all. So that was the end of the video. We are coming up on 2 hours. Okay. Let's see what the rest of this. So this comment says, I want to read the rest of the comments. Ballerina Farms have money to put on a production about her dozen kids. That's not the norm for the 99% of women who are working multiple jobs. Absolutely right. And that's another thing. Like, her husband was incredibly wealthy. Let me just close that. I don't know if you guys heard that, because I stopped sharing screen, but the YouTube was still going. But yes, that's also true too. He's extremely wealthy. Like, I think his father owns like WestJet or something. Like, the father of the ballerina farmer's husband, like his father, like I think he owns WestJet or something. Like, I don't know. And I think that's part of the problem too. Like, she was hoping to get some trip to like Italy or Greece or something, and he got her that egg apron. And people were like, doesn't his dad own like the airplane line? Like, he could have just taken her to Italy. Like, you guys have the money. But anyways, Lilith Speaks says, right, Ballerina Farmer seems like she's a shell of her old self. People are concerned about mental health. Exactly. And the thing is, it's like, I feel like Candace completely ignores what goes on. Like, having children can be such a beautiful thing. But not everybody responds to motherhood the same. It's a very different journey. She acts like postpartum depression isn't happening in higher numbers, and the effects of that and the effects on how that is to be a mother. I think especially because they don't have maternity leave and the time to actually bond with their children, it actually increases the postpartum, which increases depression, anxiety, and all these things that she's accusing women of needing more help with. Right? Oh, they're more popping pills because they're depressed and they're anxious. It's not because they have access to education, Candace. It's because the lack of education and the lack of support for women and mothers is scarce. So she said she's projecting her jealousy of the freedom she no longer has. I think so too. I think a lot of it is projection. Candace is fighting to take away the opportunities that allow us women to reach our intellectual and income potential the way she had access to. She really is. And that's why I don't understand. Like, Candace, you would not be where you are. He owns JetBlue. Okay, so it's JetBlue, a few other airlines. Exactly. So when you couldn't bring her to Italy, you didn't have to pay. You probably have a nice private jet of your own that you could have used. You could, even if you wanted to take your bag of children with you, all go to Greece, go to Italy, or wherever the hell she wanted to go. Like, are you serious? Are you serious? It's completely ridiculous. So that is the end of the video. I'm super happy to be here. I thank you guys for joining me. It's been a great video. I think if you guys wanted to come up, you would have said so in the comments. So I would usually play my outro video, but I'm thinking that from right now, I believe that StreamYard has changed, and all my cute little videos and my little clips that I use to, show myself off, like show my personality, are not working. Even my intro and outro video are not working. It's quite upsetting. I might have to find a new platform because that's not cool. But yeah, thank you so much. I'm glad you guys enjoyed the show. Thank you for joining me. I am going to try to go live more often. Going live always makes me super nervous, but everything that makes you nervous is usually just one practice away of becoming something you feel totally comfortable doing. Again, I want to thank you guys for joining me. Thank you guys to whoever's watching the replay. Please like the video, share, comment. It's a free way to help the channel. I've been growing a lot more, and I totally appreciate all my new subscribers. I have so much ideas and so much to share. I can't wait. Thank you guys again for watching, and we will talk soon. I love you guys.